I think one of the key takeaways coming out of the Roval this week was I really, really enjoyed that new turn seven. It brought in a new passing lane that I didn't think we saw in years past. It gave drivers an opportunity to, make passes, which we know in this next gen car has had massive issues passing on road courses. Great job by NASCAR. Great job by Charlotte. Man, do I love that Roval.
Powered by Riverside.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome into a brand new episode of the Broken Wheel Bearing Podcast. I'm your host, and alongside of me is the one, Vince Picciatti. What's up, Vince?
Hello, I am back after my hiatus.
Well, I screwed up already. I didn't even tell you who the host's name. It's Matt Codd, of course, alongside of Vince Picciatti this week. Vince, it's good to see you as usual. I wanted to sit there and give us a little shout out. I think we set it up. I think I finally set it up correctly, but we do have this episode live on our YouTube station. That's right. We are now officially on YouTube live streaming
We are live.
at the Broken Wheel Bearing Podcast. So if you want to listen and see our faces, I mean, that's up to you. Follow us on YouTube at the Broken Wheel Bearing Podcast so we can give you guys interact with you. I like this format a little bit better, Vince, and the reason why is I feel like when we do our fan interaction zone, I feel like we get too delayed sometimes, especially if we miss a week. Sometimes we forget what the Spotify questions and everything is. So I love the idea of being live with our fans because not just do they get to see our faces, but they also get to interact with us while we record on the episodes of the podcast.
It's true. They get to comment mid podcast. I actually love that idea. I want you guys to be talking negatively about our hot takes. I want you to be throwing in your picks. I want you to be telling us why our picks are wrong. That's kind of the key for me is like when we're doing our picks at the end of the episode, you need to be shouting out, Larson, Elliott, whatever. So I pick the right person so that I win every week.
Well, I caught that little catch in there as well. I mean, listen, I did call Christopher Bell at New Hampshire. I'm just saying. So, Vince, loaded show on tap this evening, like we usually do it each and every single week. Show announcements, a few of them coming up. We have sponsorship updates, fast headliners this week, courtesy of jski.com, because we took 2 weeks off, which we need to stop doing because all the fun winners end up winning the week that we take off, right? Last week was Ricky Stenhouse Jr. This week we had, Kyle Larson, which was kind of in a snooze fest, but we'll talk about Larson a little bit too. We got an article of the week, which kind of came out of the Roval, which is very interesting. We definitely want to let our fans know all about that one. And then we're going to go into our Charlotte Roval race weekend discussions. We have a lot of BWB thoughts coming out of it. Big headliner this week, controversies all around. So get excited because there's a lot to dive into. Close out tonight's episode, of course, with our South Point 400 race weekend out in Las Vegas. Vince, I can't believe we're already in the round of 8.
Yeah, this season's moved so fast. Vegas, one of my favorite tracks. Truly, I think Vegas is one of the few tracks that I think is still left in NASCAR that's like such a pure racing track. But to think, I'm just trying to think about back when we first started recording together. It was right after Vegas at the beginning of the year. It's just how quickly things have moved. It's been a fun season so far, to say the least.
It really has. And honestly, I think one thing that I continue and tend to forget about is we had a 2-week Olympic break. We were off for 2 weeks. We went from Indy to 2 weeks off to Richmond with Austin Dillon winning that race. But like you said, it's been a lot of fun. And we're going to kick things off with our show announcements because of how much fun we've had in 2024. We don't want the party to stop. We started it down at Daytona on this podcast. We went to Darlington. We had our Pocono block party tailgate. And of course, folks, that's right. We will be at Martinsville on November 3rd. That's right. This podcast at the Paperclip. And again, now that we got YouTube, it will be a live episode. It will be a live episode before the race. So super excited to be down there, Vince. I went down there back in 2018. Clint Boyer ended up winning the Monday race because we had this weird ass snow band from North Dakota all the way down to Southern Virginia. The race got snowed out. That Monday they ran the race, absolutely gorgeous. But dude, it was so cold. It was the coldest race I've ever been to. So I'm hoping this time around it's not as cold as it was on that March day in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Hoping it's a little bit warmer, but you know what though? Nothing beats fall NASCAR races at all.
Nah, just the way that the sun sits. I love the fall time. This is my favorite time of the year. I think it's like so cliche for Gen Z to be so into fall, but I'm one of them. I'm with it. Pumpkin spice lattes and running around doing wine tastings with the wife up in the countryside. That's on the menu for sure these next couple of weeks before Martinsville.
Well, I think a lot of our fans know because I posted on the Broken Wheelbarrow Podcast Facebook page. You and I are diehard Phillies fans, and we did, FYI fans, we did choose to watch that disaster of a baseball team get blown out by the Mets instead of recording. So
Yeah.
we apologize. I mean,
That was a conscious decision.
you know what the worst thing was? I texted you. I'm like, do you want to watch? Do you want to record while watching this game? And you're like, no, we're not going to do it. We're going to watch the game. Yep.
We got the Phillies hats back there. You can see them. That Astros hat was a gift. and it sits in the hat rack mostly because I don't want it to touch the other Eagles and Phillies hats. But you can see it up there. You gotta get that out of there. Actually, it's just a nice hat. You can tell how nice it is because I don't freaking wear it. Look how pristine it is, and then look at all the Phillies hats. They kind of look rough.
Unfortunately, that's what that baseball team does to us. So again, we chose to watch them last week. I'm just saying over podcasting, which NASCAR, by the way, we missed a great episode with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. winning. But going back to show announcements, yes, that's right. We'll be down in Martinsville. Super excited to see our fans down in Virginia. Like I said, we will be doing a live episode through our YouTube channel, which I'm super excited about. But at the same time, we really do look forward to meeting all of you that live in the Virginia area. So show announcement number one. Show announcement number two. Again, I wanted to continue taking time out on this podcast because I know a lot of our fans, Vince, yourself, living in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
I want to obviously take time out and continue giving my complete condolences to everyone impacted by Hurricane Helene and also Hurricane Milton this past week. Absolute heartbreaking, again, as all the videos that came across on Facebook and Twitter or X, Instagram, any site that you've seen it, absolutely a disaster. The people of North Carolina, I feel awful. And I know words and, send my condolences isn't going to fix your roads. It's not going to fix your homes. It's not going to fix anything. But I do send prayers and thoughts your way because I really do care for everyone's safety, whether you listen to us, whether it's your neighbor. Vince, it looks like nothing at your area got impacted by Helene.
No, I got lucky.
So, yeah, very lucky. Very happy.
I keep telling people, like, because I'm east of Lake Norman, like the flood, like Lake Norman flooded up pretty good. They had to open up the dam and it flooded out people in Mount Holly. So it's like, Mount Holly is maybe 15 minutes from here, maybe less, honestly. Like it's about 5 miles from where I am to the dam at Lake Norman where they had to open that up. And it flooded out a number of homes and it flooded out a number of towns downriver. And I mean, Morgantown, which is about an hour from here, a little bit farther past Hickory, where I'm at, was devastated, and it was only worse from there. One of the things I keep telling people is that when my wife and I went to Asheville, and we went to the River Arts District, and we saw Asheville. It's what you do when you're there. You see the River Arts District. We saw the Biltmore Village and things like that. A lot of these areas that have been, devastated by the storm, completely wiped out. But one of the things that I took notice of when my wife and I were driving around, we went to the botanical gardens, and I, down by the River Arts District, and I said to my wife, I went, look at that pole. We were at a stop sign, and I said, look up at that pole. I'm like, do you see that water line up there? She goes, what are you talking about? I'm like, look at that stick. There's a horizontal stick, and it said 23 feet 7 inches, and it was the 1916 flood. Historical flood water line. The river was on the opposite side of maybe a football and a half field away from that pole. And it's like, hey, Anna, like that, that watermark, that line that they demarked was the river flooding up to that point. I'm like, could you imagine the devastation that would have caused all of those buildings, all those homes, everything that you see in between that pole where the road is and the river itself? And, it's terrifying to imagine, but the water line that was reported was 27 feet 9 inches at its peak.
Yeah.
So what we were seeing, way up on the pole at 23 feet, it was 4 feet above that. That's how high the watermark was from the river. It's just, obviously, I think a lot of people are still in recovery. I have a lot of friends, my coworkers, things like that, who have been sent out to Asheville and have been working with recovery. So, we send our support there.
Absolutely. And especially the folks out in Tampa, in that area, St. Pete, Sarasota. We had some fans from Florida, which we met down in Daytona this year, and they were in from the western side of the state. So we're with you, and hopefully, I know it's not much, and obviously the first thing you're not going to do is look at Facebook during a natural disaster like a hurricane, but I'm hoping at least our posts end up giving some answers on where to go, whether you went to Darlington, whether you went to Atlanta. We're with you and everything. Like I said, I again, complete loss of words. I know my condolences and prayers aren't going to fix your home, but I 1000% really have you deep down inside of my heart, and God be with you. So, Vince, let's jump into some sponsorship updates, fast headliners.
Sure. We got some exciting ones this week. We're going to start off with Knoxville, Tennessee's own Chad Fincham returns to MBM Motorsports at Homestead this next week. MBM, also known as Motorsports Business Management, announced today at Knoxville, Tennessee native Chad Fincham will drive the number 66 Green Light Performance Products and American Airs Incorporated Ford Dark Horse Mustang in the Straight Talk Wireless 400 at the Homestead Miami Speedway. It is the team's, I think, third or fourth start this year. So it's cool to see another open team. They'll be showing up at Homestead this next week. NASCAR to expand campus lab program starting next semester at the Winston-Salem State University. A little bit kind of off the typical racing news cycle that we talked about, but after a successful kickoff semester at the Bethune-Cookman University at Daytona Beach, NASCAR announced today the expansion of the campus lab program starting the spring semester of 2025, that students at the Winston-Salem State University will also have the opportunity to join the program that targets highly motivated students interested in pursuing careers in the fast-paced sports industry and provide them hands-on experience through a specialized curriculum. Really, really cool that NASCAR is doing that type of an outreach. Winston-Salem, home of Bowman Gray Stadium, which is a track on next year's schedule. Again, a little bit different news. Hailie Deegan, we talked about her a little bit when she got kind of booted from her ride at AM Racing. She will be moving, as was rumored, by this show in August. She will be moving to the Indy NXT for the 2025 season. After making her way through the ranks of dirt racing and stock car racing, Hailie Deegan will shift her focus to open wheel racing in 2025, competing in the NXT by Firestone with HMD Motorsports, which is an exciting opportunity to see what comes of that for her. A number of failed NASCAR prospects have gone that direction and have found some success. So we'll see how that goes for her. We'll obviously be keeping our eyes peeled. How about Texas A&M University partners with Stewart-Haas Racing at Phoenix and Las Vegas these next couple of races to promote the university on both Josh Berry and I believe Noah Gregson's car.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to skip number 5. I'm going to jump to number 6 because I want to get back to number 5. Number 5 seems like an interesting one that we might want to talk about. A 6th bullet point here is Bonanza Cabaret partners with Ryan Preece at Las Vegas and Homestead. The iconic wine producer, Camus Vineyards, will feature Bonanza, its popular California Cabernet Sauvignon, on the number 41 Ford Mustang Dark Horse for Stewart-Haas Racing. Driver Ryan Preece in back-to-back NASCAR Cup Series races at Vegas and Homestead Miami Speedway. And then spotter Josh Williams, not to be confused with driver Josh Williams, will be moving to Trackhouse with Shane Van Gisbergen and Connor Zilic with Junior Motorsports in the Xfinity Series. So Shane Van Gisbergen in the Cup Series for Trackhouse, and then Connor Zilic, a Trackhouse affiliate driver with JR Motorsports next season. WeatherTech to sponsor Shane Van Gisbergen and Connor Zilic. So speaking of those two drivers, they will be spotted by spotter Josh Williams and sponsored by WeatherTech in both of their rides for the majority of the season. I think they said it equals up to 36 races. So, I don't know exactly what that looks like, but 36 total events between those two drivers. And our ninth bullet point here is Brian Cramp, named technical director at Legacy Motor Club. So Legacy Motor Club has been making quite a number of moves this season. This team's been kind of loose in its movement. They swapped manufacturers a couple of times. They're going to another manufacturer next year. Brian Cramp will be moving into the team. Legacy Motor Club is pleased to announce that Brian will be joining the club in the role of technical director effective immediately. To date, Cramp has nearly 2 decades of successful motorsports experience in both NASCAR and IndyCar and will oversee the engineering at Legacy Motor Club. Of course, a lot of talk about how this car with the independent suspension is kind of similar with IndyCar, especially with the spec chassis and everything. So we'll see if that translates for Legacy. They've been struggling for sure this entire season. And another spotter update, spotter Eddie DeHaan will be joining the number 7 Spire Motorsports team next season in the number 7 car for Justin Haley. That team seems like the Spire all-star group. I mean, you have the number 1 crew chief. Now you have a spotter like Eddie DeHaan, which, that's a championship spotter in Eddie DeHaan. That team should be very successful next year if Justin Haley can kind of keep it pointed between the navigational beacons. But then going back to number 5, before we get into our main article of the week, I figured this might be something we might want to talk deeper about. Because I've heard about this a couple of times, and I still don't really know what it means. NASCAR and IMSA discussing future joint event. So NASCAR Holdings leadership has been in discussion with its IMSA sports car property about working together on a future race event in which both series compete. As my understanding is, this is not like NASCAR is going to be a class of car in IMSA. This is not going to be they're sharing the track at the same time. But it is funny to imagine NASCAR and IMSA having discussions because it's just this. It's just two hands of the same puppet talking to each other because NASCAR owns IMSA. So, but I thought that was interesting, especially because there's been some talk about Southern California not having a race for the foreseeable future. Long Beach being obviously a track that IMSA races on once a year and has for the last however many years. NASCAR might not be going to Chicago Street Course soon, so there, maybe there's something at play there. But I throw this to you because I'm not sure exactly what this means. What's NASCAR thinking here?
Well, it's interesting because, as you said, they're basically owned by the same company. They are. It's called as is. You brought up Long Beach, and I really didn't think about it because when I first read this headliner, NASCAR and IMSA discussing future joint event, right? Well, where can they do it? What event, what track can they do it at? Well, there's a few that came to my mind. One, Watkins Glen. Well, IMSA races there in late June. So NASCAR's not going there in late June. The second one is the Daytona. Okay. Well, what's IMSA's biggest event of the year? The 24 hours of Daytona. That's 3 weeks before the 500. Television rights, all that type of stuff, most likely out. Then you bring up Long Beach. Okay. Well, that's awesome with IMSA. It's a road course. NASCAR's not in Southern California anymore, at least in the foreseeable future. We don't know if that future is ever going to come back.
I hope it does.
I do too. And I do too. And what a perfect event this would be to have both IMSA and NASCAR at Long Beach in, I don't know, let's just say late August. Mm-hmm. Between maybe even in February. I don't know when IMSA runs Long Beach, but you kind of want to match it up with that. And granted, they're both owned by NASCAR properties. So they can change anything around with the schedule to make it work. I personally think Long Beach is the best option for this.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you don't want to take away the two events at Daytona. You don't want to take the 24-hour race at Daytona away
No.
from IMSA, and you don't want to put the 500 the same damn weekend. My
No,
God.
that would be. I think we all agree that that would just be bad.
Could you imagine? It would be like that. There's a joke going around on, like, there was a reel going around. It's like the Super Daytona 500 Super Bowl. And that's how I feel like the IMSA 24-hour race and the Daytona 500 would be. So Daytona would be out. Like I said, Watkins Glen, I get it. They can schedule around it, but why would you want to put Watkins Glen in late June? You already know NASCAR loves that date in August for the Cup Series. Plus, at the same time, that is a long racing weekend. I think Long Beach is the best option. I like the idea. I got to see more about it. I know it's pretty much discussing, it's brainstorming right now. Really, that's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm intrigued to see how you put it in play. And I think Southern California might be the market. Listen, right now nobody within the NASCAR community at all, even NASCAR corporate, does not know what's going on in Fontana. They continue saying, well, we hope to be there, we hope to be there, we hope to be there. That's great. Well, hope's not a strategy. So we don't know what's going to happen with Fontana. They still don't know what's happening with Fontana. All I can tell you is Fontana, majority of the tracks basically taken out. That's all I can tell you. We don't have a date. But if you want to do this, you want to keep a Southern California market, I really like this idea. Let's go to Long Beach with both of them.
Yeah, Long Beach is typically at the beginning of the year, which is about when NASCAR does its West Coast swing. So, there's a lot of matchups there. The Long Beach race is usually very short. It also does not include the hyper cars, so there's no, you're not looking at LMP2 with the LMDH at the same time as the GTP and the GTD. You're not adding multiple layers of multiple types of cars on the same track. It's not like the 24 Hours of Daytona. It's a shorter race, tighter circuit. So, it makes a lot of sense, but at the same time, nothing else has really come out. So we'll have to kind of point and see. Another track that I thought was interesting was Road America, only because NASCAR's gone there in the past. IMSA at Road America was hopping this past year. I mean, Road America is a hopping track. I mean, it's such a cool track.
Love it. Yeah.
I don't know if it's necessarily like the coolest track for NASCAR. I think a lot of fans were kind of like, wow, I'm so excited that we get Road America. And then they saw a Road America race and they went, oh, it's a road course where it takes 3 minutes to get around the track. Like, yeah, that's how some road courses are. It's a big track. It really is. It's a huge track. But that one was kind of one that I thought was maybe interesting, at least. So we'll have to see kind of how that goes.
Yeah, I personally like Road America. I think listen, if the street course idea doesn't work, go back to that on the 4th of July. The fans of Wisconsin showed the hell up. I mean, I do think the race in 2021, to me, I thought was a much better project than 2022. 2022. I thought the next gen car was a little inconsistent on that track. I mean, but that's road course racing in a nutshell with this vehicle. The last generational car was much better. But I think we should run it back with Road America. That'd be a great event as well. You're going to end up on a road course. Let's just call it as this. You're going to end up on a road course.
Yeah, no, IMSA's not running an oval.
No, they're not going to run an oval. So you're going to end up on a road course. It's just which one. So keep an eye out on that. That could become maybe an article in the near future, just saying. So, Vince, final before I get into the article of the week, like you said, Eddie the Hunt was the one that popped out in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Championship caliber spotter for Chase Elliott. Now you add Eddie the Hunt with Rodney Childress in that 7 car. That car is setting everything up for Justin Haley to be a legit playoff contender next year, man. It is going to be exciting and exhilarating what that 7 team can do. And I believe personally they have the right driver in Justin Haley for what he was doing in Rick Ware equipment. I like it. I love the move with Eddie the Hunt. Continue building talent around another talented driver. Iron sharpens iron. I love it.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how it goes. Justin Haley never really excited me as a prospect, but with, as you mentioned, his performance with Rick Ware Racing this year and seeing the performance they've gotten so far out of, it's a very small sample size, but between, Kaz Grala and, Cody Ware himself and Corey LaJoie, like it's that team hasn't again, it's such a small sample size we can't really tell, but it's not like the team's been like steamrolling anyone.
No,
Um,
they haven't.
so we'll have to see how Justin Haley does. That team to me reads like the Jets, where it's like they're putting all these pieces together. There's an expectation going into next year. It's like Justin Haley's kind of bet on himself in a way where it's like, okay, sink or swim, make or break, make things happen. Because I imagine that Spire Motorsports, with all the money they spent, all the research they put together on that program over the last 2-3 years, they want to win. Justin Haley's a winner. He's won races in the Cup Series, believe it or not. For those who don't remember, 2019 happened. He did win a race. He got one back from the racing gods. So we'll have to see how that goes. To me though, he's still a fringe playoff contender. I would not call him a playoff contender yet. He's a fringe. He's like Daniel Suarez. If he wins, obviously he's in, and I believe he could win. But I'm not saying he's a favorite to win.
I like him on super speedways. I really do. And I think that this is an opportunity for him to really get the job done on a super speedway. But all right, Vince, let's get into the article of the week for our fans. This article this week, really interesting, a very odd article. So bear with us. NASCAR, aware of allegations a team engineer stole intellectual property to give a rival team. An article courtesy of Jenna Fryer of the AP News. NASCAR has acknowledged it is aware of allegations that an engineer for a Cup Series team accessed proprietary information and shared it with another team. The Stock Car Series released no details about the allegations because neither team has filed a complaint with NASCAR. But a series of spokesmen confirmed to the Associated Press at Charlotte Motor Speedway over the weekend it is aware of brewing scandal between the two teams. The engineer is in contract year with Joe Gibbs Racing, according to executives with 6 teams who spoke with the AP on condition of alimony because the details are considered private and have not been disclosed publicly. Joe Gibbs Racing, which has 2 cars still competing in the playoffs, declined to comment. The engineer had been exploring options with other teams as the season draws to a close. Multiple team officials told the AP on Sunday, confirming they discussed possible employment. NASCAR acknowledged to AP it has heard that one team, with no cars in the playoffs, paid the engineer cash in exchange for setup information. Until a lawsuit is filed or a complaint is lodged with NASCAR, there is nothing the series can do, raising concerns that employees will be able to hand over information to rivals without ramifications. Again, article courtesy of Jenna Fryer of the AP News. That'll be posted on our Facebook page, the Broken Wheel Bearing Podcast, for your reader discretion as well. Get a little bit insight as well. So, Vince, not a lot of details on this situation. Joe Gibbs Racing looks to be impacted by a employee who's on the way out. What are your thoughts? I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. It's almost like sign stealing when Michigan did it with Jim Harbaugh. I mean, this is pretty interesting to hear this.
Yeah, I mean, this is, for the fans who might not understand how important this is, there's an entire, it's just an iRacing. And I know that iRacing's not real life, but there's very much a parallel draw here. People get lawsuits over stealing setups in iRacing. And I know what you're thinking if you're a listener. That sounds really dumb. And it kind of is. But these are proprietary information. This is information that takes hours and hours and hours to create. And that's on a video game where you can do things instantaneously. For real life, what this individual stole essentially or shared without any permission or authorization is data and setup knowledge that has taken probably tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, and supplied it to another team. I believe I would assume that if this individual is an engineer, has any access to proprietary information, he's a pretty high-ranking individual. Sadly, he's probably harmed himself and his long-term ability to maintain employment. It was a dumb decision. He's obviously thinking he's got to try to find a way to give himself leverage. Maybe many guys are looking for a job right now. I don't know who it was he gave the information to. The article doesn't say. I tried to look into this because I thought this was a really interesting matter. Couldn't find anything. I talked to some of my friends in the garage. I had someone reach back to me and say, yeah, not good for that guy. And that was it. And I went, okay, I'll take, it's not good for him. But, there's a really interesting dialogue here. Like, okay, did this person take this information, take it to another Toyota team? Did he take it to a Chevy team? Did he take it to a team in between manufacturers? I mean, Bill Davis Racing settled for $6.5 million with Dodge back in 2006, I think it was, or maybe 2007, because they were using basic setup knowledge that Dodge was giving them for their Cup team and applying it to Toyota trucks for the truck series that they were not officially even running yet. They were just providing it to TRD for a truck team that they had. $6.5 million. So this is the first we're going to hear about it. I imagine that this is going to be a little stinging article that kind of keeps getting updates every other week. We're going to hear about it deep into July. You'll start hearing names getting popped into this. This isn't going to go away. And really, because of this is a spec series, the only thing teams have is their data, setup, and engineering. That is it. They have nothing else. They can't manufacture brake parts that are 1 gram lighter than the next competitor to shave weight. They can't they can't build a fuel bladder that weighs less or can hold more than another team. There's none of that. There's no ingenuity in that. You try something that's different. You try to manufacture your own part. It doesn't matter if you're a fabricator or you can get the part or not. You will get fined hundreds of thousands of dollars and disqualified from any NASCAR race if you try to cheat the system in any way. And we saw that with Storehouse Racing. It doesn't matter if it's a hinge for your, the hatch over the top of your, literally the hinge on your hatch is a $120,000 fine. You can't do it. So your setup, how you set your shocks, how you set your travels, how you set your ballast, where you move your ballast block. The ballast is a little tiny block that weighs like 50 pounds. It's made out of like tungsten. It's like a tiny little thing, but it weighs a ton. You can move that inside the car. We know because Alex Bowman lost it out of the back end of his car. That's another topic for a later discussion on this episode. But you can adjust that. So like even that, like where you place that, how you place that, all of that information is really important. So to imagine that JGR, one of the best teams in NASCAR, period, an engineer shared this, it's the beginning of a much longer episode. And I'm going to be curious to see what comes out of this. I know that people are going to be fired. 1, 2, I think NASCAR is going to be suspending some people. But that's the only predictions I can give right now because I don't know any other information. Is I think heads are going to roll in and out of teams, and suspensions are going to come flying.
Totally agree with that. I mean, again, every sport has consequences with cheating, and this is complete cheating. I get it. Joe Gibbs Racing, best organization in NASCAR. One of them, excuse me, because you got Hendrick, you got Gibbs, you got the top dogs, right? I'm curious what team took the sacrifice to get this information, because for a fact that team is going to get massively fined as well. And remember, we had Spingate with Michael Waltrip Racing, which essentially became the downfall of Michael Waltrip Racing. Interesting of note, right? It says with no cars in the playoffs, the team that paid the engineer. No cars, not cars. So you look at the teams with the organization with no cars in the playoffs, right? We got Spire Motorsports. You got Richard Childress Racing, 2 cars. Legacy Motor Club's got 2 cars. And Rick Ware Racing is another organization with multiple teams. So I'm interested to see what organization it was.
There's not a ton of options here. You're looking at Rick Ware, Spire, Rick Ware, Spire, Front Row.
Front Row, yep. That's one I missed. Richard Childress Racing.
Yeah, that's right. I was trying to think about what you using. I'm like RCR. I mean, JGR only has 1 team, so like that doesn't really count. But either way, and Legacy Motor Club, so it's like there's not a ton of options here. And you have to imagine, like, with it being a Toyota team, like, does that breach contract? Like, is there a chance that a Toyota team, like, maybe was part of this discussion from one Toyota team to another Toyota team? Legacy Motor Club's not going to be Toyota next year, but man, as I mentioned with Bill Davis Racing, it's like Bill Davis Racing was making was using just basic information to help build a truck for a truck series, not even the same series, and they had to settle for over $6.5 million.
Yeah.
So legacy, it's like it doesn't matter you're leaving Toyota. Toyota sends that information to JGR, who either maybe whatever JGR does with it, and then it gets to you. Like now you've broken Toyota's trust, and maybe any deal you may have with Toyota, you've broken NASCAR's trust. This is really interesting. It's going to be really interesting to see how NASCAR handles it themselves. Once more information kind of comes out, like I said, I think it's so early that it's, NASCAR's, I think, itching to deal with this issue, though, because, again, setups is the only way you break the cars up right now because of the spec, with it being essentially a spec series. So I imagine NASCAR is on its heels. They're ready to pounce on this issue.
Yeah, well, listen, with all the penalties that they're willing to give out, for a fact they're willing to give another damn penalty. So, article of the week, courtesy of Jenna Fryer of the AP News, and that's NASCAR aware of allegations a team engineer stole intellectual property to give to a rival team. Real quick, before we get into Charlotte, intellectual is such an interesting word. I love it, but it's also, when I first pronounced it, it's just like, what? My brain just didn't comprehend it. Sorry, folks, I did butcher it on the first time around. So intellectual,
intellectual property.
It is a word. I guess we'll do a word of the week on the podcast. I don't know.
Intellectual. Yeah, next week it'll be proprietary.
Hey, listen, if you have a job, you know what that word is. All right, Vince, let's close out our Broken Wheelberry news dump, and let's take the green and white checkered flag on that. And we're going to take the green flag out on stage 2 of tonight's podcast, and that is the Charlotte Roval race weekend. Topic of conversation: controversies all around. So, folks, be prepared. We have a lot to break into. Sam Mayer won the drive for the Cure 250 on Saturday, and then Kyle Larson won the Bank of America Roval on Sunday. Before we jump into the discussions about the Roval, got to give a shout out to our dude, Trioval Life, of course. Man, he was out at the Roval on Sunday. Awesome pictures. He sat right in front of that turn 7. He had awesome angles. Really cool to see, like I said, about the new turn 7 from the angle he was sitting in. If you want to see those pictures or videos, check him out on Facebook, Trioval Life, big contributor of the podcast. We love you, man. Appreciate the pictures, appreciate all the support as always. So, what is
That's a heart.
A heart.
That's what the ladies are doing nowadays. That's what the Gen Z ladies do. They do this.
So
and then the other one does this, and then they do this from a distance.
So our non-YouTube crowd and our iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and our Spotify fans, if you're listening to this episode, Vince gave me like an alien-looking heart, and he's saying it's all about Gen Z. Whereas
I'm Gen Z. My Gen Z wife does that with the coffee lady. I don't know. It's apparently it's a heart. You gotta crip your fingers up or blood. You gotta make like blood fingers. It makes a heart. I don't know.
Sometimes, man, always double check the Gen Zers. All right, let's talk about our BWB thoughts coming out of the Roval, and we're gonna kick things off with this one. Let's start off with the Xfinity Series on Saturday. Vince, my heart breaks for Parker Kligerman. Absolutely breaks. I watched this replay so many times now. I continue to say this. Parker Kligerman got fucked by NASCAR. Complete, total fucked. I'm sorry to use that language. That's the complete terminology that happened to Parker Kligerman. To me, he took the white flag and was over the line when the caution lights came out for Leland Honeyman's tire failure. The rule we constantly hear each week from Elton Sawyer in NASCAR is what? Once the leader takes the white flag and the caution comes out, the race is official. Okay, well, here's the thing. If you watch that replay, Parker Kligerman comes to the line. The white flag waves. And right as the yellow lights come on, Parker Kligerman's the front nose of the car is over the start finish line. So the race is over. And it felt so bad because his crew chief is like sitting there so excited. I mean, that's a monumental win, by the way. He was out of the playoffs. He wins that race and he gets into the round of 8. Now, granted, does he win a championship? Probably not. But the point
No,
is,
but a round of 8
a
is
round of
good
8
for
is huge.
the vibes.
Absolutely. And again,
Not to mention that team has never won.
No.
In the at least in the Xfinity series ever.
No, and they listen.
Excuse me, Big Machine.
Yeah. Listen, they got great equipment. I mean, they do have pretty good equipment. They got race-winning equipment, and it sucks because, again, and the one replay that I heard everyone talk about is like you have to watch this from this angle, right? I go on YouTube, I watch the CW, and I slowed it down. And the one angle was there was lights underneath the flag stand, and apparently they turned yellow before the car went over the start finish line. And if you slow it down, I don't see it. I don't see the lights go yellow until his hood, the nose of the car is over the start finish line. He got
we're playing like such silly games over whether or not he took the white flag. And that's so frustrating to me because really the point is if Leyland Honeyman was in a place that was so dangerous you had to throw a yellow, why did it take so long? And to me, it comes down to I think they were just hoping that Sam Mayer was going to get to him. I hate to be conspiratorial or like throw it out there, but like I almost feel like they were hoping that Sam Mayer was going to get to him, and then he just couldn't because it was too short of a time. And then they went, okay, caution. All right, now it's a caution.
Yeah,
throw it. I mean, the excuse that they didn't have the same angles that we did at home. It's like I saw that Leyland Honeyman was in the barriers before NASCAR? Really? How is that even possible? You know what I mean? Like, that's just so frustrating. Parker Kligerman, announced his retirement. I think that was a fast headliner a number of weeks ago as he announced his retirement. He's not coming back. He's not running anymore. He's 33 years old. He's been running in the Xfinity Series part-time since 2009. He has a number of top 5 finishes, and this year has been kind of objectively one of his best years ever. 4 top 5s, 13 top 10s. He actually was better last year with 8 top 5s and 18 top 10s. Led more laps this year. Has just had a strong season. And last year he had a really strong season too. And I think Big Machine did win a race with Tyler Reddick a number of years ago, but still, to win with Parker Kligerman, I think is a big, more meaningful moment. I think Parker was kind of screwed out on that one. There's no way of denying it. If Leyland Honeyman, who by the way, a lot of people are mad at, really, did Leyland like throw a piece of debris in front of his left front tire and put it out himself? He was running fine. He's been running fine all year. He's in like not good equipment and he's running pretty well. So I'm not going to sit here and hate on Honeyman. Honeyman's a young guy who's in bad equipment and not doing so bad. Actually, he's got a very Parker Kligerman-esque vibe to him where he outperforms expectations in bad equipment. So I mean, Parker, man, if somehow this gets to you, I feel for you, bro.
Yeah.
That sucked.
Totally. I mean, it completely does, Vince. And the worst part about it is you got Elton Sawyer, who, again, who's now become my favorite comedian, literally goes on SiriusXM with the Morning Drive today and said, yeah, the caution took too long. You think? Do you think, Elton? Like, are you kidding me? Like, this is NASCAR's rules, and they have done such a horrendous job all season long. And on Saturday, it was another opportunity for NASCAR to screw it up again. Remember in Indy, in the Cup Series earlier this year? Ryan Preece spins out. Kyle Larson goes almost a half a lap, takes the white flag, goes into turn 1, and then they throw the caution lights on.
Yeah. Why?
And Denny Hamlin calls him out on the podcast. Denny Hamlin literally goes, "Really, NASCAR?" And I was in my camper and I saw that it took you 8 seconds to literally figure this out. It's a joke. I mean, each and every single week, and I agree with you, not to be a conspiracy either, but was Parker Kligerman the best driver at the end of that, or best car at the end of that race? No, that was Sam Mayer. Sam Mayer had an incredible long run speed. But you know who the best driver was at the end of that race? Parker Kligerman. Parker Kligerman legitimately ran literally qualifying laps. Literally put that car in positions that Sam Mayer couldn't get. And I really do think that NASCAR was like shocked that Sam Mayer couldn't get to him. On the green white flag, on the green white checkered flag, Sam Mayer took the bottom lane. Parker Kligerman took the top lane. Kligerman gave him a fight. Sam Mayer ends up pulling ahead. He got around Parker Kligerman for the lead. Ends up winning this race. He advances to the round of 8. Not Parker Kligerman, which, man, oh man. Like, I mean, imagine the last 20 minutes of that race for Parker Kligerman. You go from, I'm in the round of 8 to, yeah, I now finished 6th.
Yep.
So thank you again, Elton Sawyer and NASCAR bureaucracy, again, for screwing it up. Read your own damn rule book for once. Like, for God's sakes.
It comes down to... that's the other thing with the green white checkers we keep having. To me, it's frustrating. I think it's time to maybe look at the green white checkers again, and maybe we nix it, at least for the lower series. We talk about shortening races all the time. You know what is like the opposite of shortening races?
Green white checker.
Taking an hour and a half to complete 2 laps.
Mm-hmm.
Nashville, it took an hour and a half to do 2 laps. An hour and a half, 2 laps.
Yeah.
Why? Who was that to the benefit to? The team owners? No. The fans? Probably not. I think half of them are gone. I mean, the traffic, for those who stayed, the traffic was probably great because there's no one left. They had already left the vicinity and they were back in their hotels by the time the race ended. I mean, it's silliness. And it makes the sport look bad. It makes the sport look silly. It makes the sport look kind of dumb, for lack of better terms. You know, maybe it's time to look at the green white checkered situation. And I'm not saying that at every single track, but like, do we really? I mean, that's the other thing with cautions at the end of stages. Do we need cautions at the end of stages? Or we don't want the races to run so long. Okay. You know what? Shorten the race, not having yellows predetermined after 20 laps of driving around.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's a fair point with the green white checkered. I mean, it really is. I mean, I would experiment the green white checkered probably in the Truck Series and probably in the Xfinity Series and try to eliminate it. I do think that we need to go back to 1998 rules again. Once the caution comes out, it doesn't, if it's the final lap that, or, you know, I know the rule of thumb is, well, if the leader takes the white flag, but NASCAR doesn't even know when the white flag even gets waved at this point. They literally just showed you that on Saturday. They go, well, when the leader takes the white flag. Well, to me, who interprets that rule is once the flagman throws the white flag out, that's it. The race is over. Yep. He captured the white flag. But instead, NASCAR does this, well, you know,
the light says.
The light says, and it's like, yeah, but you clearly can't even determine the lights. It was a complete joke. It was a really good race on Saturday too. It's a damn shame.
It was better than Sunday's race. Again, the Xfinity Series outperforming the Cup Series, but the Cup Series race was good. I thought it was fine.
Cup Series race was great. I mean, and the Xfinity Series, that they did a really good job, but again, it got highlighted from a stupid calculation. Again, great job, Elton Sawyer. Great job. Vince, you said speaking of Cup, okay? You talk about Cup. Well, let's talk about topic number 2. Kyle Larson, man. We are now on a trend in this playoffs that he has now won every elimination race. Now, granted, there's only been 2, but he's won both of them. Bristol and the Roval. On Sunday, he won the 2024 Bank of America Roval 400. 6th race win of 2024. And we have gotten into this, again, we got into this really interesting trend of him winning every elimination race in 2024 playoffs. So if you're going to Martinsville, like myself, be prepared. You might see the 5-car in victory lane. Just saying. To me, here's the interesting thing about Kyle Larson. He was absolutely the best crew, best driver, best car, whatever you want to say. He was the best in this race on Sunday. legitimately no competition. The only time there was competition is when he went down pit road. He led a total of 53 out of the 109 laps on Sunday. Did he win any stages? No. Finished stage 1 in 5th, finished stage 2 in ninth, and that's sacrificing stage points to go win the race. He was so far ahead in this race. I mean, Shane Van Gisbergen, who won the pole, great job, by the way, by SVG. Listen, he's coming up to the Cup next year. I'm really interested to see what he does at the Cup level on these road courses. It's going to be exciting. So he won the pole on Sunday. Him and Larson jumped out in the front. Reddick was out there a little bit too. And then all of a sudden, Larson got past Shane Van Gisbergen and just literally just put down time. And that was it. That was the end of it. The first pit stop in stage 1, folks, I don't think you understand how impressive this was. He comes down pit road. I believe he was the leader at the time. Comes down pit road. Ends up getting 4 tires, fuel, everything. Gets out of pit road and is only in 5th. Or I think he was in 7th. Or excuse me, he filtered out at 8th. Finishes the stage in 5th. You know how hard that is? Even at when we're at Watkins Glen and all that type of stuff, that's very, very insane what he did on Sunday. Again, the 5-team strategy was not to win stages on Sunday, but it was to win the overall race. The scary part, again, about the strategy, each time he would pit, he would end up filtering back into the top 10, which was a complete disaster, and he was on fresh tires. So when the rest of the field, who was collecting stage points, ended up coming down pit road, the rest of the field had to start in the back. He was in the front with fresh tires. he give Kyle Larson fresh tires and the front of the field. It's night. Like, good night, good game. It's done. Couple questions I have for you, Vince, the audience, and everything. Where do we see Kyle Larson as favorites as a 2024 champion? I mean, we all know how wacky the Cup Series playoffs can be. We all know that, right? Sometimes the best overall driver doesn't win the championship. I look at 2020. Chase Elliott was not the best overall driver, but he wins the championship. 2022, was Joey Logano the best driver? No, it was Chase Elliott. But Joey Logano wins the championship. We know how wacky this season can get, and we all know for how much success the 5-team has had this year. We have had this discussion on the podcast. It can be records or checkers for Kyle Larson. But where do you see him? Or is he the heavy favorite to win the 2024 championship? Where do you see him at?
I think it's hard to not make him the case for the championship favorite at this point. When he won the championship in 2021, he took him 10 wins throughout the year to get there. He has 6 wins this year so far, which is the second most he's had in his career in a single season, most since his championship run. You look at the tracks that he's won at. He won at the Charlotte Road Course. He won at Sonoma. He won at Indianapolis. He won at Bristol. He won at Kansas. He won at Las Vegas. Well, here's Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Here's the opportunity for him to punch his ticket home. What's next week? Homestead. Who's one of the best drivers at Homestead Miami Speedway year after year, even when he was in not particularly good equipment? Kyle Larson. He won that race in 2022. I imagine he's going to be a favorite, riding the wall the entire time once again. He's had near dominant performances. I think back to 2016 where he kind of, I don't want to say forfeited the win to Jimmy Johnson, who went on to win the championship, but he was the leader, and then Jimmy Johnson, who's running for a championship, kind of makes a run on him. It looked like he, to me, was playing the gentleman in that situation. Even without the wins at Homestead, he's a favorite to win Homestead, without a doubt, in my opinion. So Kyle Larson, the next 2 races to me is a favorite to win. For my number 1 pick to win the race, and then obviously he wins the race, he advances to the championship 4. So he's got 2 huge opportunities, 2 bullets in the chamber, and he's got himself a good points situation as well. So to me, Kyle Larson is a favorite. Going into the playoffs, he was a favorite to make the Final 4 for me, and he's just been reinforcing that this entire playoff run.
Up to this point, according to NASCAR.com, Larson's season to date is 6 wins, 13 top fives, 16 top tens, average finish at 13.5. Oh, currently he's the leader in the points, and he's only ran 31 of the 32 races.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the most scariest part, right, with Kyle Larson. What's scary about that is that he ran 31 races out of 32. He missed a whole race. And he still
Yeah,
points.
and a race with a race that has the most stages.
Yep.
At a racetrack that he has historically been good at.
Yep.
So you have to imagine that if he races that race, he's going to probably get stage points, at least in 2 of the 4 stages, or 2 of the 3 stages you can get points on top of your actual finish. So he's going to get extra stage points, and he's probably going to run, where did Justin Allgaier finish? He had a great race, by the way. Justin Allgaier had a
13th,
solid race.
I think he finished 13th, yeah.
But he finishes 13th. So imagine, Kyle Larson, I would deduct like 8 from that. So he's finishing 5th.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing, too. You bring up a good point, right? He won, so he missed Charlotte, and the big controversy was, will NASCAR grant him the playoff waiver, which I can't believe at one point in the season we were actually having that talk. But again, great job, Elton Sawyer. Great job. The one thing I will say is he missed Charlotte, but then he won in the Cup Series. It's kind of a nice little redemption tour for him. He ended up winning Indy, and then he won the next race at Charlotte. I mean, it is kind of funny, but as you were saying, I agree. He's got 2 bullets in the chamber. Is he? And really, honestly, he's got 3 because he's won at Martinsville, and anything can happen at Martinsville. The thing about Larson though is, can he do enough? Can he win a race before disaster strikes? And what do I mean by that? Listen, we know how great he is at Las Vegas. We're going to be talking about him when we get into our Vegas picks. We literally had a podcast episode called Las Vegas Home of Kyle Larson. We know how good he is at Vegas. But the thing is, remember, in 2022, him and Bubba Wallace, he ended up wrecking. I mean, things can happen. Now, granted, the second race I love in this stretch for him is Homestead. 2022 is the race that comes to my mind where he was just nearly unstoppable at Homestead. And I do like how many shots he's going to take. But again, though, anything can happen. Is he the bet in favor right now? Yeah, I would say yes.
He's got to be the favorite to make the Final Four. If I had to pick one person who I would guarantee in the Final Four, at this point would be Kyle Larson.
Yeah, and honestly, my next question to you before we get into our second topic, with Kyle Larson, if he doesn't miss that race at Charlotte, I mean, how far ahead in the points is he? I mean, he definitely wins the regular season championship. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he's probably he could probably on-load finish top 5 in Vegas and maybe clinch already because of how far ahead he would be in points. I mean, it's remarkable to me how well he is in regards to points with missing a full complete race. I mean, this is going to be unheard of. And for me, I kind of root for him to win the championship. And the reason why is because I basically want him to flip NASCAR off. And basically be like, remember?
It would be like hey, you talked about whether or not I could even make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Well, I'm here.
Here
I am.
Totally agree. And that'd be the best thing too. Is they got to hand him the trophy at the end of the year at Phoenix too. So that'd be hysterical.
I think I made this prediction the week going into Indy, and I said he's going to win Indy, and then he's going to win the championship. And so far, so good.
You're like 3. You're 3 for 3 right now, or 2 for 2.
I'm batting 1,000 tonight.
Yeah.
You know who's batting 1,000? Tyler Reddick.
Topic number 3. Topic 2 coming out of the cup. Topic 3 though, Vince. You're right. Tyler Reddick, man. Listen, it's got to be intimidating when you get the best basketball player of all time sitting on top of your pit box, and that's your boss. And I loved how in the booth they kept saying, like, listen, the guy sitting on top of the pit box at the end of the games won the damn ball. Well, Tyler Reddick took care of that ball, and he scored on Sunday. Nearly eliminated on Sunday at the Roval. He ended up winning stage 1 on Sunday, but not collect any stage points in stage 2 and finished this race in 11th. Had to run a strategy of collecting stage points on Sunday due to the very underwhelming playoff run in the 45 is having in 2024. And it is very underwhelming. Let's call it as is. He was my pick halfway through the summer to win the championship, but at this point, I'm like, man, still sticking with my guy. but it's not looking too good. After winning the regular season championship, Tyler Reddick, leading up to the Roval, had an average finish of 19.6 through 5 playoff races, with one top 10. That was a 6 at Atlanta. With the strategy of collecting points too, you will have to start in the back of the field after each stage ends. In the back of the field, Reddick got into some trouble and hopped the turtles in turn 7. Man, he got airborne, by the way. He got completely airborne. Ended up getting airborne, making contact with Denny Hamlin. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I thought his race was done. I thought he was cooked. I had one of our little listeners, Jake, he was texting me at least, and he was saying, "Oh man, Reddick's season's over. Your prediction was off." Well, guess what? Guess what?
He survived. Give him tires.
It was Michael Jordan-esque, right?
He literally said, instead of saying, "Give me the ball," he said, "Give me the tires."
Give me the tires, and guess what? Great job by Billy Scott, by the way, and that 45 crew. They got that car fixed up. They gave him tires, and Reddick absolutely drove the tires off that car in the final stage to get back to 11th. With the 11th place finish, Reddick was able to transfer into the round of 8 and now have a plus 10 lead over the cut line due to him winning the regular season championship. The one thing I will say with Reddick, he was driving very aggressive, which I love that. I love that type of Tyler Reddick. I really do. He's got to sit there and he's got to thank Daniel Hemrick, though. Daniel Hemrick saved him coming out of turn 7. That could have been disaster for the 45 with how aggressive he was. But thank you. Let's just round of applause to Daniel Hemrick. Round of applause.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel Hemrick. I mean, I don't think Daniel Hemrick was appreciative of it.
I don't think so either. But
he's trying to finish out his career on a high note, and here comes Reddick. Boop, boop. I mean, Hemrick was having a good run.
Yeah.
He really was. I don't think of Daniel Hemrick and go wow, that's a road course driver.
No.
But he was having a solid run. I think it was 13th, and Hemrick was just kind of, there. And Tyler Reddick's car, I don't think Tyler Reddick wanted to, but his car wanted to be there. And I think transferred all of the spin and the centrifugal force into the 31. And, the 45 went in dead sideways, hits the 31, which is 100% under control, had full grip. 31 goes send off towards the tire barrier, and the 45 immediately centered itself and drove off like nothing had happened.
I know. A round of applause to Daniel Hemrick, though. You were a champ, man. You were an absolute champ. Congratulations. You made your one highlight a year. You saved Tyler Reddick's season, really.
You did it.
You did it.
We did it, Hemrick.
Great job. You'll be a career Xfinity for life. Love it. Anyways.
I hope he does. I hope he has nothing signed yet. Hemrick has been so quietly good.
He's been
quietly serviceable.
Serviceable is a good term.
He's better than Ty Dillon. I'm sorry.
Yeah, which Ty Dillon's going to be back up next year.
Ty Dillon's replacing Daniel Hemrick, and it's
I know.
Hemrick is not necessarily the guy, but Ty Dillon's not either.
Collie kind of screwed that up, but that's a topic of a different day. Going back to Reddick, though, Vince, let's finish off with Tyler Reddick now. With the 11th place finish added, Reddick has an average finish in the playoffs of 18.1. Will that average finish help him advance to Phoenix? No. That answer is absolutely not. And we will need to see Reddick outperform his average finishes at the next 3 tracks. His average finish at Vegas since 2021 is 9.4. That would rank him 5th among active drivers. He has an average finish of 13.3 at Homestead since the start of 2021. That would rank him 9th among active drivers. And his average finish at Martinsville since the start of 2021 is 19.1, which would rank him among 22nd among active drivers. So Reddick, to me, has a ton of work cut out for him in this next round. The 2 saving graces, though. 1, Vegas. He is really good on 1.5 milers. And guess where he finished back in the spring? 2nd behind Kyle Larson. The second track, which was kind of a surprise to me since the start of 2021, was his 13.3 average finish at Homestead. That track suits his high wall riding driving
It
style.
does.
So for that, it was kind of like a head scratcher. I expect better results from him in Homestead this year. Martinsville's a toss up. Some guys have it, some guys don't. Um, like I said, Reddick has to outperform his average finishes over the next 3 weeks at those tracks. And again, thanks to driveraverages.com for the rankings of Reddick at Vegas, Homestead, and Martinsville. Follow them at driveraverages.com on the web.
Yeah, and just looking at his finishes, I mean, he's got 2 wins in the Xfinity Series back in 2018, 2019. Reddick should be, again, just like Kyle Larson, he's got 2 bullets in the chamber. He's got a track that suits him, and he's got a track that he's historically been good at. Suits him is Homestead, and then Vegas is historically good at. So I think for all 8 drivers, they got to be looking at Vegas and thinking, I got to get it all there.
Yeah.
I know you have another race at Homestead, but I if you're someone like Joey Logano, you probably are looking at, and I know Joey Logano's won Homestead. He's won a championship by winning Homestead, but it's still like, Vegas is a very neutral site type track. It's not a track that really, is particularly good for only people who drive the high line or only people who run the bottom or only people who are this type of driver, only people that. It's a track that seems to be good for those who are just good. If they show up, their team's good, their setup's good, the long run's good, the qualifying's good. You combine all the goodness, you're going to be good at Vegas. You go to Homestead, you can be great at qualifying because sometimes they run the bottom in qualifying just to cut the course. Well, mid-race, you're not going to be able to run the bottom and be good long-term. So, it's a track that I think is defined by how well you manage your tires, how well you manage long run, how well you manage the slide. So, if your team's been bad long run, your team hasn't figured out the setup for harsh tracks like that, it's over. Homestead is a wash for you. You're looking at Martinsville, and Martinsville, as we talked about, it's like Talladega. I mean, maybe not anymore with how these cars can't seem to pass there, but with that track historically, and you get to the second last race of the year, it's like it's no holds barred. Anything goes. It's wet. It's wild. We've seen it. Joey Logano was all but eliminated. Shoved Martin Truex out of the way, won his ticket to another championship there. So,
yeah,
I don't think any driver is going to be wanting to go into this round who's in this round. Anyone in the round of 8 going into this round is going to be like, yeah, Martinsville's where we're going to pick it up. No.
There might be one driver in my mind that may end up having that happen. That might be Chase Elliott. But speaking of Chase Elliott, let's talk about his teammate Alex Bowman. Massive penalty coming out of the Roval this week. Absolutely blindsided by it. And I think I woke up to this news yesterday and I was like, is this real? Like, I mean, what in the hell just happened? But it is real. Alex Bowman, who made the transfer out of the round of 12 to the round of 8, was disqualified after Sunday's race at Charlotte. According to NASCAR.com, unfortunately, the 48 had an issue and did not meet minimum weight, said Brad Moran, managing director of NASCAR Cup Series. We put the car to the side. We continued on. We gave them the opportunity to fuel the car as well as purge the water system and add water. So we gave them every opportunity to make minimum weight. We ran them back through. Unfortunately, they were late again. They are allowed a 0.5% weight break, which is for usage of fluids and so on. That's about 17 pounds on the vehicle. We backed the car off the scales, ran it back on, and then, unfortunately, it was the same weight, so the car had a weight issue. All the other cars cleared inspection, the 48 didn't, and that ends up in a disqualification. According to Dustin Long of NBC Sports, Hendrick Motorsports announced that they will not be appealing the disqualification of the 48 car following Sunday's race at the Charlotte Roval. NASCAR allows a clear margin to account for the difference in pre- and post-race weight. After a thorough review by our team and the sanctioning body, we simply did not give ourselves enough margin to meet the post-race requirement. Although unintentional, the infraction was avoidable. We are extremely disappointed to lose a playoff spot under these circumstances and apologize to our fans and partners. And that was Hendrick Motorsports' statement, according to Dustin London of NBC Sports. Vince, to me, this completely sucks. this sucks. And Alex Bowman was having kind of that Cinderella playoff run. Would he have made Phoenix? Would he have won the championship? Probably not. But the amount, if you look at all the drivers in the playoffs this year, he was one of those drivers that completely did not have any issues at all. I wish that this would have continued into the round of 8 because I know Bowman was on the hot seat massively. There was rumors before the playoffs started that he was going to aspire. He had to call all the Hendrick Motorsports guys. So I wanted to see him do well. But unfortunately, his average finish going into the Roval was a 10.8. And now being disqualified with the 38th place finish at the Roval, Bowman's average finish in 6 playoff races at 15.3. Again, terrible ending for AB. Now, with the Bowman disqualification, one driver that was eliminated after checkers definitely benefited from the disqualification, and that was the two-time champ, Joey Logano. I said this after the Bowman news. 7 Cup teams were seen punching air after the news broke because Joey Logano has now entered the discussion of the round of 8. To make the Logano haters even more sick, let's go through Logano over the next 3 races and his average finish. All average finishes, again, according to driveraverages.com, and it's since the start of 2021. What has Joey Logano done since the start of 2021? Well, he's got a 13.1 average finish at Las Vegas with 1 win, 1 top 5, and 3 top 10s. That ranks 9th among active drivers. So Logano ended up punching his ticket to the Championship 4 back in 2022 by winning this race. Homestead, not really efficient. 17 flat average finish, ranks him 20th among active drivers. So he's not notoriously well known at Homestead, could still probably get it done because he has done it back in the past.
Yep,
finally.
Won a championship there.
Absolutely. So finally, Martinsville. Okay, these numbers is what really, really popped off. Like literally, I was like, holy shit, I can't believe how good he is. Martinsville, he has a 5.3 average finish with 3 top 5s and 7 top 10s since the start of 2021. That ranks now first among active drivers going into Martinsville. Yeah, I mean, Vince, there's no...
He's the guy. He literally disputed everything I said earlier when I was like, I don't think anyone's going to go into Martinsville thinking this is where I want to pick it up.
Yeah.
Joey Logano.
Yeah.
Joe Logano, he's like, he's going to go through Homestead. He's probably going to have a decent finish at Homestead, decent finish at Vegas. But he's going to go to Martinsville and just twirling his hair, knowing what I didn't know, that he's just elite at Martinsville.
Well, and the other thing, too, is when I look at those numbers, I mean, and let's call it as is, we know how Joey Logano loves to show up in the spur of a moment. Kyle, we're talking about Kyle Larson, we're talking about Tyler Reddick, we're talking about the driver X, Y, and Z at Vegas. Well, guess what? I know that he hasn't been great in the spring, but that 22 car with the back against his wall has punched his ticket winning at Vegas in this round. Joey Logano is going to be a legit nightmare now to these teams. And listen, he was a legit nightmare all the way till the end of that race at the Roval on Sunday. He legitimately did everything in his power, and that's when champions rise. I expect the same thing to happen with him in this round. Don't be surprised if that 22 team punches the ticket. Massive gift from NASCAR, but guess what? He's going to take advantage of it. You watch.
Yep. And the best part is that he didn't panic. He could have panicked. He could have saw that he was going to get eliminated and driven over his head and wrecked his car and self-spun. But he kind of accepted. I don't want to say he accepted defeat, but what can you do? What else can you do? You hope that Tyler Reddick over pushes the car. You hope that someone in front of you blows a tire. You hope you get a caution. You can't panic. He didn't panic. Even under the white flag, he didn't panic and try to take someone out to get an extra spot or two to try to get back up to Tyler Reddick.
No.
And it paid off.
It did.
Alex Bowman, sorry. You hit that curb too hard, something flew out from your car, maybe. I don't know. That's what a lot of people are suggesting might have happened. I think it's hard to imagine that NASCAR didn't notice the ballast fell out of a car. Mm-hmm. Only because that's a severe penalty. I think Denny Hamlin had one in 2021 come out because they were replacing the battery and they just didn't fix the ballast block in their correct place. That's a serious penalty. I mean, it's a tiny piece of tungsten that weighs like 50 pounds. It's like, it's absurd. It's absurd that something this big can weigh as much as it does. So when it falls out of the car going 180 and it hits the track and skips a couple of times, you drive that thing through your windshield. I mean, that's like the only thing that I think can puncture a NASCAR windshield with how well it's designed. So I imagine it would be a pretty serious penalty. So I have a hard time imagining that he had the ballast fall out. I think Hendrick Motorsports would have appealed it if that was the case. And it just sounds like they set that car on the edge on its weight. Hendrick Motorsports is trying to find any edge they can. In this case, they were trying to find the edge on the weight situation between Alex Bowman's sweat loss throughout the race and fluids lost throughout the race or whatever else happened. It just didn't make minimum weight, and now he's eliminated along with a few other drivers.
Well, let's talk about
all the feel goods got eliminated. All of the feel goods are gone.
Let's talk about, and let's bring out our final point, closing segment, basically from the Roval before we head into Vegas. Let's talk about the 4 drivers that were eliminated from the playoffs, and give us a real quick second.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
Unfortunately,
I think that's how Chase Briscoe reacted to his win at Darlington. Playoffs?
So we have now officially gotten 8 drivers eliminated over the last 6 weeks. To give a quick rundown, after the round of 16, Brad Keselowski, Harrison Burton, Martin Truex Jr., and Ty Gibbs were eliminated. In this round, after the round of 12, drivers eliminated were Alex Bowman, disqualified after the Roval we just discussed. Chase Briscoe. What a run for Stewart-Haas Racing. Just great run, fell short. Unfortunate circumstances on that case. 3rd driver eliminated this week, Austin Cindric. Man, came so close at Talladega. So close.
He was good.
So close.
And he was solid here at the Roval, too.
He was.
That's kind of like the thing with Austin Cindric was once the playoffs started, he was good.
Yeah, he was.
If he had that all year, I would not have been upset of him winning a race at Gateway because – I mean, let's be honest, with Ross Chastain and Chris Buescher and doing as well as they have during the playoffs, I can't help but to think that someone like Austin Cindric kind of stole a spot from someone more deserving.
I agree.
But then he's been so good. He's actually been good. You take away a wreck that wasn't his fault at Talladega, say he survives that wreck. I mean, he may have pointed his way in. He may have been the one who benefited instead of Joey Logano. From the disqualification.
Yeah, you're 100% right with Cindric. Once the playoff season started, I mean, it's been totally night and day with him. He was quite a massive surprise to me. I mean, Atlanta, he did well. I mean, Watkins Glen, he did very well. He all around a solid playoff performance from the driver at the number 2, a lot better than his first playoff run.
Yep.
Hopefully, it's a momentum builder for Cindric. I know a lot of people.
I had him written off.
I
had him written off as hard as I had him in 2022 written off. I mean, maybe even harder. 2022. I still felt like, he's got that surge from his Xfinity Series days. That guy can drive. He just has to put it together. And then this year, I was like, man, he won a race. Like, wow, that kind of bracket busts things. Like that kind of stinks that he won a race.
I just think it was the way that he won too, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, he was very good in that race, but it was the way that he won. But like, credit where credit's due. I mean, like you said, I mean, he's literally one draft mistake away from probably holding Stenhouse and Chase Elliott off for winning that race at Talladega. So came so close. Great job by the 2 team. Got to give credit to where credit's due. It was a great run by them. Final driver eliminated. Well, Trackhouse driver Daniel Suarez. Really never said much of him in the round of 12, but I will say he had a sensational round of 16. Similar to
he had an exciting one.
He had an exciting one, right? Almost won Atlanta.
Atlanta.
Watkins Glen, he had speed. I mean, Bristol, he was in the
Watkins Glen, he got wrecked, was a lap down and sent in the gravel at one point, and then drove back to 11th.
Yeah.
So, like, he was obviously good at Watkins Glen. And then the Bristol drive of the century, 34th place. 3 laps down, and he's just driving away from Ty Gibbs. And every moment that Suarez drives away from Ty Gibbs loses a position and Daniel Suarez gains one on the cutoff. His round of 16 for me was his championship run. I mean, like that. Mm-hmm. It's like Suarez made it to the round of 12. It's like that's the champion. Like Trackhouse can walk out of the season and be like, "Hey, we made the round of 12."
And then and then the other thing is you had Ross Chastain win at Kansas. So Trackhouse has been very good this playoff. So unfortunately, those 4 drivers have been eliminated. So your remaining drivers in the playoffs at home, if you're keeping track, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, William Byron, Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, Joey Logano after the Alex Bowman disqualification. Vince, 2-part question. We're going to make it real quick so we can get into Vegas. What is the one driver that you're disappointed didn't make it to the round of 8? And what's the one driver that you think is going to surprise people in the round of 8?
One driver I'm disappointed didn't make the round of 8. It's tough because the people who were eliminated, as we just said, were like the people you didn't really expect to make the round of 12 in the first place. I am a little sad to see Daniel Suarez go, but he was not very competitive much this season at all. Austin Cindric wasn't competitive much at all. Chase Briscoe had been turning it up and turning it on in a pretty significant way, actually. But I go back to Austin Cindric because Austin Cindric right now is actually sitting 10th in the points. So those who don't understand kind of how the system works, once you're eliminated, you fall back on your raw point total from the beginning of the playoffs. So everything you've earned since Darlington, everything you've earned since Darlington plus the playoff points you carried going into the playoffs, that's how your positions are set beyond 4th place. So for Cindric right now, Cindric actually sits in 10th place. He's ahead of Ty Gibbs. He's ahead of Martin Truex Jr. He's ahead of Daniel Suarez, Brad Keselowski, Chase Briscoe, and Harrison Burton. So Cindric has turned it up in the playoffs so much that he has surmounted any point deficit that he had on those guys who may have had more playoff points than him, and just built on a lead on top of that. So Cindric was genuinely good this playoffs. And we mentioned he was really one mistake that wasn't his fault away from very likely making the next round. So for me, Cindric's kind of the guy I go, man, I didn't really like him making the round of 16, let alone the round of 12, but he's been so good, it's hard to deny that he's worth mentioning. On the flip side, someone I'm excited about in the round of 8 is Joey Logano. I mean, how can you not look at Joey Logano and think to yourself that this man's going on a championship run right now? It's just so like Joey. He's just such a villain without trying. Like, it's the guy in fantasy football who wins because your quarterback kneels 3 times in a row because the other team calls a timeout, despite the fact that they're winning 47-9. And they're kneeling the ball down. It's called timeouts to get the ball back for no reason. And you lose because you kneel. Like, that's Joey Logano is the guy you play in fantasy football the week that's how you lose.
Yeah.
You lose by like 0.1. And Joey Logano is just laughing. Like, he's texting you. He's like, you seen the game, dude? You just lost this matchup. Ha ha ha. I mean, that's just who Joey Logano is. So to see him make the round of 8 to me is indicative of just what Joey Logano is. He's a survivor. He's a soldier, and I genuinely fully suspect him to be the round of 4, despite his point differential.
Totally agree with Logano. I think Logano is the menace that is going to legitimately create havoc in these remaining part of the playoffs. I don't trust that 22 team at Vegas. I think that if you're Kyle Larson, if you're guys that are good at Vegas, you're going to be very shocked that he's going to show up and he's going to really ball out at Vegas. And Martinsville, we just read the stats. I mean, he is just 5.3 average finish since the start of 2021, excuse me. One driver I am very excited about making it into the round of 8. I'm going with Chase Elliott here. And I know that Chase Elliott really hasn't had the most exciting season, but the one thing I really do like about Chase Elliott is I really like his back against the wall at Martinsville. I really do. He is very talented at the paperclip. I think if you're the 9 team, I know, Vince, you were saying earlier in the show, you can't really you can't put all your eggs in the basket of Martinsville. I think that's what the 9 team does. I don't like them at Vegas. They could pull it off, but they really tend to struggle at Vegas. I don't know why, because they're really good at Kansas, which is very similar tracks. Homestead, I don't really see the 9 showing up, but I really like them at Martinsville. So I expect the 9 to at least give a run for its money into at Martinsville. One driver I'm very disappointed. I already said Alex Bowman, but I'm going to agree with you, Vince. Austin Cindric. I mean, I really wish that we saw what Cindric could have done if he made it into the round of 8. Again, he's got a pretty good average finish at Las Vegas, so I was kind of hoping maybe if he makes the round of 8, he gives a run for its money at Vegas. But I got to give credit where credit's due. I mean, we talked about Cindric. I mean, Cindric won that race at Gateway. We all kind of rolled our eyes. We were just like, the way he won, really? Like, I mean, listen, he won.
Better than Dillon.
Yeah, I mean, listen, okay, true.
Better than Austin Dillon.
Listen, I mean, he won stages at at Gateway, but I mean, Brian Blaney pulled away. I mean, Blaney ran out of gas, miscalculation. He gets into the playoffs, but Cindric really showed up for me in the playoffs, and I really am excited to see what the 2. I think after what is it now? This was year 3 for him. I think entering year 4, you're going to kind of start seeing a different driver in Austin Cindric. So pretty disappointed Cindric didn't make it to the round of 8, but I'm pretty excited to see what the future holds with Cindric. One last driver I was a little disappointed in as well before we get into Vegas. Sorry, folks. Brad Keselowski. We didn't really get a chance to talk to him. Talk about him after the round of 16. Being eliminated after the round of 16 was a little bit of a disappointment. I really thought he would put up a better performance at Bristol. I just love the projection and the trajectory of where RFK Racing is with him as an owner. By the way, for everyone listening to the show, if you're still with us on YouTube or any of the stations that we are on, RFK is going to be making an announcement tomorrow at I believe it was 11 o'clock. So tomorrow, 10/16/2024, RFK will be making an announcement. I'm assuming it's going to be the 3rd car. But like I said, with the trajectory that RFK Racing has been with Buescher and Brad, I just wish I saw a little bit more Brad going into this round, because I really do expected a lot with him at Talladega if he was still in the playoffs. So, all right, that's going to give us our green and white checker tonight on the Roval discussion. Again, thanks for bearing with us. Let's close out tonight's segment with a little Las Vegas race preview for the South Point 400. Vince, we talked about him a lot this episode. Joey Logano won this race in 2022, while Kyle Larson won this race in 2023. These are the past 2 winners in the next-gen car. Kyle Larson ended up winning this race in the spring earlier this year, and William Byron won this race in the spring of 2023. Let's get into some BWB picks before we close out tonight's episode. And I'm going to start off with you with pick number 1.
I've been talking about him. I've been saying he's a fighter. He's going to do it. He's going to make it happen. He was my pick in the spring, and he absolutely disappointed. But that was because Joey Logano already knew he was going to win Nashville. That's what the fans don't understand. He already knew that. He already saw it in the mirror. He's went, I'm feeling a Nashville win after 16 green-white checkered flags and an hour and a half of sitting around waiting for the race to finish up. I'm going to win that race. Joey Logano is going to win this race. I don't think it's going to be in the same manner. I don't think it's going to be 155 green-white checkers. I think it's going to be that Joey Logano is just kind of sitting from 6th to 12th place the entire race. He kind of falls off. You kind of forget about him. He has a good pit stop, and it puts him in like 4th place or 5th place. Something happens on a restart. He's in 2nd place, and next thing you know, he wins the race. It's gonna be weird. You're not really gonna think about him. He's not gonna lead a lot of laps, but he's gonna win the race.
Again, 7 teams punched air the other night when they heard that 22 team was going to be in the playoffs. Solid pick as pick number 1 this week. Pick number 1 for me. We talked about him a lot. We actually had an episode title named Kyle Larson, or Las Vegas, home of Kyle Larson. That's right. We're going to stick with Kyle Larson for pick number 1 for me this week, Vince. Kyle Larson, since the beginning of 2021, really since he's come over to Hendrick Motorsports at that point, in 7 races ran, he's got 3 wins, 5 top 5s, 6 top 10s, and he has led a total of 602 laps. Kyle Larson is an absolute freak of nature at this track. And Again, he won this race last year to punch his ticket out to Phoenix. Do I expect Do I expect the same story? Probably. I mean, let's call it as is. It's Kyle Larson. Anything can happen in the playoffs. I get it, but when you're the best driver on the planet, and that's to my F1 fans, if you're the best driver on the planet, you show up in big moments like this. Kyle Larson's been there multiple times. I like Kyle Larson, pick number 1 this week.
Larson's the obvious pick. I'm going for Warriors. My Warrior pick number 2 is not much of a Warrior. He's kind of a quiet guy. But he was really good at the start of the season. He's been very quiet. And then he's been picking it up again a little bit lately. And that's William Byron. William Byron's been very quiet since he started the year off win after win after win after win. If he wants to make the Final Four, he's got to find victory lane again. I think Kyle Larson being his teammate is actually a hindrance to William Byron because if Kyle Larson's got race-winning speed, I think it's going to be hard to beat. But Kyle Larson has had signs of cracks with that team this year. Putting tires on that weren't completely tight and having to come back down pit road. Accidentally swapping one set of tires, the right side put on the left, things like that. William Byron's team, from what I can recall, has been ironclad tight. So William Byron in a race that's just kind of not a lot of wrecks, not a lot of panic, not a lot of anything other than race strategy from beginning to end. I think it will provide William Byron the best opportunity to win this race. So Joey Logano is kind of like things start happening. There's a couple of collections of cautions. William Byron's it's smooth sailing, no wrecks the entire race. It's a long-winded race, and his team is perfect. The best on pit road gives him the clean air, and he wins the race.
So, the strategy for me with my picks this week, Michael Jordan's such a dominant figure in NASCAR. Best basketball player of all time. What did Michael always want at the end of the games? He wanted a damn ball. Kyle Larson, at the end of the race, at the end of the season, championships on the line, he wants the ball. He wants to win. Well, this is going to be the coming out party for my pick number 2 this week, and that's Tyler Reddick. Last week, he just wanted tires on the car, and he put himself in position to finish 11th and transfer into the next round. Well, he's got a clean slate now. Clean slate, plus 10 above the cut line. Tyler Reddick wants the damn ball. He finished here second back in the spring. He wants to prove a point this week. He ends up coming into this race. His Vegas finishes, average finish since the start of 2021, 9.4 average finish in 7 races with 1 top 5 and 5 top 10s. Tyler Reddick to me this week is going to want the tires on the car to overcome Kyle Larson. Tyler Reddick pick number 2.
I like that. Late race, caution. Tyler Reddick says, give me the darn rubber. Give me the rubber. Give me the rock.
Let me ask you a question before you get to your dark horse. Does Michael make the flight out to Vegas? I mean, he's been there a lot.
He's gotta be.
I think he's going to 100%.
He'll be there, especially because it's Vegas. I mean, Vegas for someone who's poor is very fun. It's a very fun place to be for a poor person. So I imagine that being a rich person, Vegas is awesome. Like really, really cool. There's a reason why it's like a playground for the rich people. For poor people, it's like, I enjoyed the nature stuff. I enjoyed bathing in a salt pond in the middle of the desert at 1 a.m. Like that to me was like the peak of the trip. But for someone like Michael Jordan who can like afford to go to like an actual spa at the same hot spring, like he doesn't have to like trespass like I did. He could just go and experience like Nirvana for lots of money and he can afford it. Like I imagine that it's worth the trip. It's gotta be. It's gotta be worth the trip. That's what you call segueing. We segued.
That's good. That's good. I do
into Ross Chastain. It's not a very good segue. Ross Chastain's my dark horse pick. Why? Because he was actually pretty good at the Roval. I think he spun twice. I don't know if he was if it was really his fault he spun twice at the Roval, but he was running fine. He was running like in the top 10 and then he just kept spinning. I did notice at one point that Daniel Suarez like threw his car into a corner and Ross Chastain like basically parked it and then got run over from behind. So like he gave Suarez the position and then he got spun like the next lap by the people behind him. But Ross Chastain otherwise has been very good this playoffs. He had really, really strong performance at Watkins Glen. He had a really strong performance. Obviously, when he won, so I imagine 1.5 mile track, a very similar track here at Vegas. Ross Chastain's got to be a favorite. He was really strong here last year. He was strong in the spring. He had a good qualifying effort, if I recall correctly. So, to me, this is just another weekend where you have a very solid chance that someone like Ross, who didn't even make the playoffs, kind of busts the days of the guys trying to lock their way in.
Dark horse this week, 20-year winning streak on the line. Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch, actually, to me,
should be the pick every week.
Yeah,
at the end of the year.
Honestly, he's been right. Like he's actually been pretty good this playoff run, right? Average finish of 8 flat at Vegas since the start of 2021 in 7 races. 5 top 5s, 5 top 10s. Has led 69 laps in this race. His best finish in that stretch is 3rd. His lowest finish is 26. And honestly, lowest finish was 26 this past season because of a stupid penalty down pit road. I like Kyle Busch a lot this week. He's been really good in this playoffs so far. Another dark horse. Listen, we started another round. Last round, we watched Ross Chastain win a playoff race. Why not Kyle Busch this week? So Kyle Busch, my dark horse this week. And with all that being said, that takes us to the black and white checkered flag on tonight's episode, Vince. Whew, lots discussed, lots on. Basically, we just offloaded everything for the last 2 weeks. So, if you love what you're hearing, and you love listening to us ramble about cars that go really fast in circles and road courses, well, subscribe to us. Follow us on Facebook, The Broken Wheel Bearing Podcast. Follow us on Spotify. Follow us on iHeartRadio. Follow us on Amazon Music. Follow us anywhere you can find us, right? We also have a YouTube channel now up and running, which I'm super excited about. We're hoping to get it on Facebook so everyone else gets an opportunity to listen to us. It's been absolutely remarkable the last couple of years as their second season starts winding down. It's been remarkable doing this show with all of you. I've absolutely enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure. Vince, I want to tell the crowd this. Thank you so much. Enjoy your Las Vegas race weekend. Vince, you do the same. And we will be chatting next week.
Oh, what's the fan interaction question of this week?
Oh, shit. We forgot to ask that. Fan interaction question of the week. Let's go with the Spotify question of the week. Is Kyle Larson the heavy betting favorite to win the 2024 championship? That's going to be our Spotify poll question of the week. Spotify question of the week. You heard us talk on air about it. What was one driver you're disappointed that has been eliminated so far in the 2024 playoffs? And what is one driver you're excited that is still in the 2024 playoffs? We'll read your answers on air.
And give us a synopsis. Don't just be like Alex Bowman. Like Alex Bowman because you like him, Alex Bowman because you think he's cute, or Alex Bowman because he had a DNF. Like we need answers here.
Yeah,
give us
books.
Pawn it off.
Yeah, give us a paragraph. Like I said, for me, like I said, Chase Elliott, I'm excited because I think they can get it done in Martinsville, and I think he's good. Austin Cindric has had a complete turnaround of the playoff, so it's disappointing to see him going. That's going to be our Spotify question, or not Spotify, Facebook question of the week that will go on. What's one driver you're disappointed that didn't make it into the round of 8? What is one driver you're really excited to see in the round of 8 going forward? So, Vince, with all that being said, go ahead.
I was just going to say, add us on Facebook. Follow us on Facebook. Right now, if you can hear us, you can hear our voices, you can hear you listen to the episode. I don't care if you like the show. Add us on Facebook.
Yes.
We need your support now more than ever because we want to go live on Facebook, which means we need you to follow us on Facebook. So I don't care if you like us or you don't like us, you have to follow us.
Yeah, please.
If you want to say negative things to us, we're here for it.
Yeah.
You can't say negative things on YouTube. It doesn't translate. You got to add us on Facebook so we can see the comments as we pop up. Tell Matt that his hat looks dumb. Tell me that I look like a scrawny, greasy nerd. Like, I want to see that. You can't see that unless we're on Facebook. We can't be on Facebook unless you follow us on Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. I love it. Again, not just Facebook. Follow us on Spotify as well.
That's Amazon. That's the important one.
All right, Vince. Enjoy your wonderful Vegas race weekend. For our fans that are going to the track, enjoy yourselves, hydrate, stay good. We'll chat next week after we come off of Vegas as we head into Homestead. Only a few more weeks left, man. It's going to be sad. So, with all that being said, have a wonderful night. Stay well. Stay blessed. Deuces. We're out.
Will you tell Mr. Dennett that Ricky Bobby is my best friend? And it's shaking big time.